Hello, beautiful people. It is Sunday night. The name of the show is Intuitive Inc., and we've got a really great show for you tonight. It's going to be focusing on something like aliens from another planet, also known as teenagers. Anyway, at one point when I was reading this book, which is called Ignite Your Spark, we're going to be talking to the author, Ignite Your Spark, Discovering Who You Are from the Inside Out. And it's focused on teenagers and ordinary teens doing extraordinary things, and also how to get to that place where you can ignite your spark and find out who you really are. And I thought to myself, I don't know if I could do another teenager. I think I just might kill me. I just was like, but it's a great book. And Patricia Wooster, who wrote it, is on the line with me now. She's also written a couple of other books. One's called So You Want to Work in Fashion, which I actually did. I worked for the fashion department at the LA Times for 10 years, so we know about that. And the other one's called So You Want to Be a Leader. And I love, well, first of all, welcome, Patricia. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. You're welcome. Patricia's calling from Tampa, Florida. So it's 9:00 at night there. It's a Sunday. I think you have two boys, Max and Jack. I'm sure you.
I do.
Yeah. Are they teenagers? I have to ask. Are they teenagers?
10 and 12, so preteen, and my husband has them on the other side of the house behind a locked door with the dog, so we're not disturbed tonight.
I think my dog knows it's Sunday night, and she looks forward to it now because she gets an extra big chewy treat, rawhide thing, and I put her in the back, and I shut the door, and she's like, please go do your shit.
Yeah, perfect.
Yes, so I totally understand that, because otherwise they're running around and barking. So you have preteens, so you are ahead of the game, right?
I am. We're just getting started on this.
Yeah. Good luck. I'm kidding.
Thank you.
I'm kidding. I really, honestly, I only have one girl, so I don't know about boys either. But okay, so let's start at the beginning. What made you, I read the book. It's fantastic because I'm all about being who you truly are, your authentic self. Like at the end of the show, I always say, be you to the full, because that's what's really beautiful. So it's kind of,
right,
going in that direction. But let's start at the beginning, because I think you said that it took you 20 years to ignite your spark, which was writing, right?
Right. I mean, well, the way this kind of started was the first two books you named, the fashion book and the leadership book, were both work for hire projects with the publisher. So they kind of came to me with a format and to add on to a series that they had.
Right.
So this Ignite Your Spark was my first pet project that I brought to them. And the way that came about was when I was doing these work for hire projects, part of the thing I had to do is each chapter had to have 2 interviews with teens who were already doing these things. So for fashion, they were already a designer or model or doing websites or media. Mm-hmm. So to find those people, you can imagine how many hours you spend on Google looking
right.
for successful teens to interview.
Mm-hmm.
And doing that, they were on lists with other teens who were doing amazing things. And that was the first thing I noticed. I was like, who are all these kids that are I'm in my 40s and I'm coming back to my passion, who already know what their passion is at this age and are already pursuing it. And that was sort of the thread that got the whole thing started. And by doing that, and really before I even decided if I was going to write a book about it, I wanted to make sure that these weren't the 1% of extraordinary teens out there that are born gifted, or they've gone
right.
to these elite schools or have some sort of advantage that most people don't have.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I found that really prompted me to write the book and to approach the publisher was that these kids, except for, maybe 2% of them in there, like Jack and Drake, who did a cancer test, were not gifted. Most of them were at an economic disadvantage. Mm-hmm. Many of them had learning disabilities. They had social problems at school. I mean, these were kids who the reason they pursued their passion and didn't quit was because they had nothing to lose.
Right.
And that's when I was like, I got to figure out, what are all these it factors going into it? Because now we've got ordinary kids who are being extraordinary.
Right.
And me with having 2 kids, like my kids are, I would consider very normal. They're not up on a high scale for intelligence or weren't born extremely talented at a particular thing. Mm-hmm. And so, that research, having the 2 kids, which they are my passion too, but then the writing that I started at such a young age and being able to bring those together was such a gift.
Right. Well, how did you get approached to do the work for hire? All 3 of my books for Llewellyn are work for hire. So I am now, for the first time in a very long time, writing what I want to write. So I totally relate to that. But how did you first connect with them to start with? Did they read an article that you wrote, or how did that happen?
Well, this was really interesting. So I grew up in Kansas, and my husband and I moved to Florida in 2000. And after just being here a year, we decided to start having kids, and so I decided to stay home with my first one. And I had never done anything in writing, not since I was younger and wrote in journals, and I had a creative writing major, but I went into sales after college to pay off my college loans and, to make a living. And so I was staying home with my first child, and I was so bored. I was blessed with the child that sleeps all the time. And I didn't know anybody because the only people I knew in Tampa worked. And so I had a girlfriend here, and I was telling her how I didn't know what to do and all this stuff. And she was a work-for-hire writer. And she had lived in New York forever and done it. And she said, I work with this book packager, and they are just dying for fact checkers. So I did a little online class on Media Bistro and became a fact checker. And so at one point I had like 60-something manuscripts sitting in my inbox for like Scholastic books, Capstone, all those books that, are in the school libraries to fact check. And after doing 300 or so of them, I approached the publisher and I said, I think I could write these books if you ever need anybody. And they did. And so that was actually before these other 2. They were for really small children, like dinosaurs and space and stuff.
Right.
And so I wrote a few of those books, and I was on a Yahoo group for nonfiction writers, and I was a lurker. I never participated. I just read it.
Right.
Because I still didn't really consider myself a writer at that time. And somebody posted something up there and said, hey, we're looking for somebody to write a book about careers in fashion for young adults. And my brother-in-law works in the fashion industry in New York. He's very well connected. And I thought, well, what the heck? I don't have anything to lose. And I put my name in the hat. And it just so happened it was somebody that was scouting for Beyond Words for the So You Want to Work in Fashion. And, I talked to him a few times, and that's how that came about. But it was, for me, I never worked in the publishing industry, and where I live is not a big publishing place. And I think a lot of it was because I didn't know any different, because my girlfriend was like, well, you don't just apply to these things, or if you don't, you don't just contact that editor. You have to go through, these different processes, and I didn't know any better, so I was contacting people and putting myself out there.
How great.
And it worked.
Yeah, that's why it's called beginner's luck, I think, because you just don't know any better. You just don't know. But you said something interesting too, Patricia, and you said it before as well, is like the young extraordinary teens had nothing to lose. And you just said, well, I applied anyway because I had nothing to lose. It's like when you don't have anything. It reminded me that when my daughter was applying for colleges in junior year of high school, and I said to her, I think she had like a 4.7, which is good.
Wow.
Thank God. But it's still not good enough to go to like Harvard, Yale, Princeton. I'm a single mother. I raised her myself. I don't have a ton of money. I don't know any senators, and I can't build a building. So I was like, I can't donate a library or anything. So I thought, okay, that's out the window. But I did say to her, I said, honey, I'm paying for it. I said, just pick 3 dream schools. What do you have to lose? Because, there are certain ones that are out of the question with that GPA, but I don't care. Just do it anyway. And she picked 3 dream schools. I think they were Princeton, Stanford, and Berkeley, UC Berkeley. And she did not get into Princeton, but she did get into Berkeley and Stanford. So there you go. Because she had nothing to lose. She just, because I pushed her well, I didn't push her, but I just kept suggesting, I'm paying for it anyway. Just do it. What the hell? What do you have to lose? And I kept saying that. I said, what do you have to? So when you said that, it just triggered all that back in my head again. And when you have nothing, when you approach things that way, you're much more likely to go for things you wouldn't go for when you have all the other stuff. Right. Okay.
And so much of it, as we get older, we get more self-conscious about those things and what the rules are.
Mm-hmm.
But when you don't know any different, or if you look at a 3 or 4-year-old and they just start pulling on things and they don't know any different, sometimes you take some chances and things pan out.
Right. And it's like, and also you're just doing, like you said earlier too, that you interviewed these teens that were doing extraordinary things, and they already knew what their passion was. And some of us did know at that age too, but they went for it, and we sort of went into no, I have to make money, and then someone's telling you you're not that good, and who are you to think you can do that, and all these other things, and it sort of the dream gets beaten down somewhere. So
absolutely
right. So I think it's important that these kids just did it. They just went for it, and it worked. How many teens did you actually, approximately, not exactly, but did you actually end up interviewing?
Well, I would say between the 3 books, probably 80.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know how long the publishing cycle is.
Right.
So some of these kids I interviewed, by the time the book was submitted, and then we went through the, 8 to 12 months of editing, some of these teens either stopped doing what they were doing, or I actually had one teen who was a designer, and then by the time the book was getting ready to be published, she was in all these, provocative modeling shoots or something.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
And so, or whatever, for different, we'd have to pull them. So I'd have to put somebody else in, or something timely would happen or whatever. So I would say maybe 80, and then we probably used between the 3 books, probably 50 of them.
Right. Well, for this last book, Ignite Your Spark, that's your baby, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Do you stay in touch with any of these teens that you talk to?
I stay in touch with a lot of them. And actually from the 3 books, I stay in touch with a lot of them. A lot of, even from the fashion book from 3 years ago, several of them gave me shout outs when, this book came out. And I follow most of them on social media, and so I'm always commenting when I see something exciting that they do. Some of them, touch my heart more than others. Right. Others, like Ali Reisman, who's in this book, when I interviewed her, it was through her agent, and she'd already been through the first round of the Olympics. and being the team captain of the gymnastics team and done really well. And the only reason I was able to even get to her was because she was in this slump before this last Olympic period, and she had been injured, and she didn't think she was going to make this team. And so at the time, they were trying to get any sort of publicity they could get for her. So I just happened to contact at the right time. But I never really got to build a relationship with her because she was so busy and she was so big. But, I mean, it lucked out for me. The book came out, like, right after, you know, she became this mega Olympic star.
Oh, wow.
So her, I don't really, I mean, I follow her, but I'm sure she doesn't even know it. But,
right.
But some of these others I communicate with quite a bit. They comment on my Facebook page and vice versa. And it's been really fun to watch them grow because some of them, it's been 4 years since, you know, I first started talking to them.
Yeah,
and a lot of changes happened during the
it takes a long time. Yeah, it takes a long time to process. I know. Okay, well, let's talk about igniting your spark. What do you consider spark to be? What do you mean by igniting your spark? I assume it's igniting your passion, but tell me what you think.
It is, but, you know, when I was a teen, it was a lot different in that when you went to school, like your parents didn't necessarily go out and try to find things for you that you were good at or where you could fit in. I mean, you went to school and you played like school sports, if you, that was your thing, or choir or drama or whatever clubs they had. But if you didn't plug in there, usually, at least where I grew up in the Midwest, your parents weren't out there like, oh my gosh, we got to find you an activity once you hit like middle school or high school. And I was that kid that just, I was not athletic, and I can't sing or dance. So I didn't really fit in. There was nothing that, like, I just so badly wanted something where I felt, I could sort of escape or could make me feel proud or good about myself. And so to me, the spark and the getting to know yourself on the inside and out, it doesn't necessarily, and when I talk to schools, I always tell them, this is not, I'm not talking about like you need to know what you're going to do for a career or, you know, you need to know what your biggest purpose, you know, in life is. Finding your spark is anything that helps you connect to who you are. And it could be a group of your friends that get together every Friday and watch some Netflix show together. It could be a club. It could be going online and chatting with people who share your love for anime. I mean, there are so many different things it could be, but it's something you can build a tribe of support around and something that you can take ownership of that makes you feel good about yourself. So if you can find your passion, what you want to do for the rest of your life, I mean, that's awesome. Right. But, you know, that can also be a lifelong journey. And I think, you know, right now it's so important that our kids are connected to something, you know, that makes them feel great. And, you know, some people it is in the academic, you know, they are into math and that is their thing and they do math clubs and whatever. And that can be your spark too, is an academic class.
So it's all, would you say it's all about building self-confidence, your self-identity, your self-image?
Absolutely. I mean, your self-worth is everything.
I agree.
And all that stuff contributes to your identity. And I think what was a eye-opener for me was this whole concept of fixed mindset, which, you know, we are all born with, and we can all name, you know, our strengths and weaknesses. I can tell you that I can't dance, I can't sing, I'm not athletic. You know, I could give you a whole list of things that I know, and I'm not just down on myself. I just know I was
Right. Me too.
Not right. And then I can name off things. I've always had a lot of common sense, and I'm pretty smart, and I can be witty, and there's other things that come easier to me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I was raised, basically what they told you was, oh, that's not your thing. Like if I tried out for cheerleading and didn't make it, my mom would say, oh, well, and I had great parents, but they'd say, oh, that's just not your thing. And then you'd kind of just cross that off your list. Like, okay, I'm not athletic. I don't do sports. And you just moved on. Well, with a growth mindset, you take that list and you say, that's just my starting point. That doesn't mean I have to cross these things off the list. If I am passionate and love them, I can absolutely develop the skills and talent to be good enough at it to enjoy it. I mean, I started playing tennis 4 years ago when I read this. I was doing research and I read about the fixed versus growth mindset, and here I live in sunny Florida and there's beautiful tennis courts down the street from me. And I thought, well, what the heck? Like, I want to do something active, and I know sports aren't my thing, but I was all pumped up with this research.
Yeah. Did you do it? Are you doing it? Are you playing tennis?
I'm decent enough that I enjoy it, and it's actually one of my greatest passions as far as, something I like to do in my free time.
Right. Well, I think one of the teens in this book, one of your questions, because I should tell people that you do interview them, and you do interview adults that have advice for teens as well. But I think one of the questions to one of the teens was, where does your confidence come from? And it was someone who was obviously very good at what they do already as a teenager. And he said it's the hard work he put into it. So he was never naturally good at what he was good at. It came from working at it because he was passionate about it. He liked it. So he just kept working hard at it. That's
absolutely. And I heard that over and over and over again. And I was talking to a school about a month ago, and these middle schoolers had my book for a month. They'd been reading it in class. So when they came to my talk, they knew a lot more than I knew they knew about my book.
Right.
And so they were really pinning me to the wall on a few things. And one of the kids said to me, well, you said these kids aren't gifted, but Jack and Draka invented an early detection system for pancreatic cancer. You can't tell me he wasn't gifted. Mm-hmm. And I said, no, he was definitely gifted. I mean, he won Intuit Science Awards and all kinds of stuff before this came up. Mm-hmm. I said, but he came up with the idea for this cancer thing that he thought that he could develop, but he needed a lab to develop it. He sent out 199 emails. He got 199 rejections from scientists when he was requesting if he could come in and use their lab. Now, something made him hit the send button the 200th time, and he got a yes. So my point was, it wouldn't have mattered how smart he was. If he wasn't passionate about it and didn't have grit, he would have never kept going. I mean, 200 emails, that's a lot of emails to send out.
Especially when they're all saying no, because at some point around 50, you're going, oh, what the hell, Most people, that's right. I mean, that's so there's another factor in there. Oh, for any of us, so if you love it enough and you believe in it enough and believe in yourself enough, then you're going to do it. You're just going to keep doing it till it.
Right. I mean, we see entrepreneurs and people all the time, and I know, where we scratch our head and go, well, Jesus, how'd that person do that? Because maybe they're not as polished or credentialed or whatever. It's because they just had more guts than probably the rest of us. They just went for it,
More perseverance. I mean, who said that success is 10%, hard talent and 90% persistence? I think it was Einstein.
Exactly.
But it was like, yeah. I mean, and it's true. I mean, it's just, and I remember Woody Allen saying, someone asked him what the key to success was, and he said, I just kept showing up. And I never forgot that. It was like, you should just show up. Just show up. No,
exactly.
It's true. So there's something else I saw in the book too that I really liked, because it's an issue for a lot of teens and a lot of adults as well. Somebody in there had something called Operation Beautiful, which
yes,
I liked that idea. I thought it was good. Can you talk about that a little bit? Explain it.
Yes. Now, Operation Beautiful is. No, she's actually not a teen.
Oh.
But she personally had suffered from some body image issues growing up. And she just started leaving sticky notes on, public restroom mirrors and things saying, you are beautiful, or let your inner spirit shine. And just, little one sentence things. And she told some of her girlfriends about it, and they thought it was, a neat idea. So at first, I think it was more just a local, and her friends kind of did it when they went places. But she decided to put it up on Facebook, and she also decided to, create a website around it. And she, at the time, she was just starting to have children, and she just didn't want her children to grow up with the same insecurities that she had. She grew up in Miami. I mean, everybody was in swimsuits all the time. And, we're so focused on the media, and, my kids are on Instagram and Snapchat and YouTube, and that is their television. And it really bothered her, the fixation of the young on the media. And so, it's really taken off. I mean, she's written books about it. I don't remember how many Facebook followers she's got now, but she's got a ton. And people leave, they leave Post-it notes everywhere with her positive messages.
Right.
And it's really been a neat motivational thing, and it's turned into a public speaking and all kinds of things for her.
Well, that's great. I'm very happy for her. I don't know who her is. I can't remember her name. Do you remember?
Caitlin Boyle.
Okay, Caitlin Boyle. There you go. Yeah. If anybody wants to look her up. But the point is that we can all do that for ourselves too. And I think that's really important for teens as well, is just to kind of remind yourself and be around people that are reminding you that you are beautiful exactly the way you are already. Right? Right.
Well, and, it's not just an issue for girls. It's an issue for boys, too. And my son that's in 4th grade, I remember when he was in 1st grade, he started talking about a six-pack. And I thought, how in the world does he know what a six-pack is? And he's saying he wants to get a six-pack. How do I get a six-pack?
Wow.
And I thought, oh, my God, nobody in our house has a six-pack. So,
yeah.
But your self-image, and I mean, I don't think it changes with age. It is very closely connected to how you feel and how you look on the outside. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's so important for our perception of what beauty is as a society needs to change. And I do think it's evolving.
I do too.
And I work with a teen mentorship for girls, and they're in middle school and high school, and we really, really stress that your self-worth and your physical appearance, you need to disconnect that, and you need to build yourself from the inside out, because we all know from back in school, if you go back and look at your old yearbook and you go and you point to the people who at the time you really wanted to date or you thought were so good looking and stuff, somebody who didn't go to your school is going to pick different people. And it's because a lot of the people who had these phenomenal personalities, you just thought of them as more attractive. Mm-hmm. And when the most attractive person in the world, their insides are not, if they're ugly on the inside, that does end up radiating out.
Yes.
And that's why your beauty from within, you always will have that. Our looks change. They just do.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, things are not where they used to be. I want to talk about something else that bothers teens a lot, and you called it FOMO, FOMO, fear of missing out, and the other thing is bullying. But first of all, I'm going to ask if anybody wants to call in with a question. If you have a teen that you feel could use some support somehow, or any other question for Patricia, give us a call, 949-313-8880. Okay, so do you, fear of missing out, I think that's kind of an issue for a lot of teenagers.
I was addicted to that.
I was just going to say, I think I fell into that cause all I wanted to do was belong, and I just didn't. I was in a small town in Montreal, outside of Montreal, LaSalle. It hadn't become French yet even, but it was a little on the banks of it. And I remember walking, and I was in middle school, and they'd say, "Here comes Chocolate Face." And I'm not even really dark. Most people can't even tell where I come from, but it's just they hadn't been around anything. But here's the thing. I didn't even know that was an insult. Because I didn't know what they were talking about. And the only kind of chocolate I'd ever had was from England growing up in London, and the chocolate I ate was white chocolate.
Right.
So that backfired. But how horrible. And all I wanted to do was not miss out. And you talked about that too. It's a big thing. What do you suggest for teens that feel that way?
Well, often what happens in that situation is that you're involved in a group of friends, and those group of friends have interests or involved in things that maybe you're not necessarily involved with, either because you don't have the interest for it or you didn't make the team that they're on. Like my girlfriends were on soccer teams and cheerleading, and so the activities they initiated revolved around that. The parties they went to were with those people. So instead of, in my case, me, but instead of that person going and finding their own interests or another organization or some, we can have more than one group of friends.
Right.
What we do is we sort of tag along with these other kids and their interests. And so, and I tell my boys this all the time, like, make sure that, when your friends are out there pursuing their dreams and doing their interests and things, that you're doing yours too, that you're not just, we can tag along sometimes, but that you're not giving up the things that you like to do just because you're so afraid that, like, those guys are going to be off doing something and you're not going to be a part of it. And that even happens that happens in college. It gets, when I was a stay-at-home mom and became friends with other stay-at-home moms, there's girls' night outs and things like that. And at some point, you just sort of have to figure out where you plug in, or what happens is you actually miss out on your own life and your own interests.
Right.
While you're kind of tagging along to a lot of these things you don't even care about.
Well, no, and you're just fitting in, and you're just going with the flow, and then suddenly 10 years have gone by, and you wonder how that happened. It's
absolutely.
I think it's important for people. My motto has always been, two people should come together. I don't care in what capacity, but certainly as friends, but even as, mother, daughter, husband, wife, whatever. Two people should come together to make each other better people. Both of you are lifting each other up, not down. That there's a mutual kind of lifting of I'm pursuing what I like, so you pursue what you like. You can do that. You can't, because there's a lot of people that'll tell you can't do what you want to do.
Well, and it makes your relationship so much more interesting too when people are like going out and pursuing their passions, or you're having coffee with somebody and they're talking about something they're really pumped up about. It's interesting to talk about people. We don't. It's less interesting to be with people who are exactly like we are, because you don't really learn and grow from that.
Right.
So it's nice to sort of split up every once in a while. And, I mean, I definitely notice this with having kids now and being sort of on the outside looking in, that when my kids are with all their whole group of friends on the street day in, day out, usually like in the summer, a lot of drama builds up. And they get bored and arguing and everything. But when they all go off and one's playing basketball and one's going to camp and doing stuff, and they get together, they really enjoy each other and really enrich each other in their relationships, because they're bringing something else to the table too.
That's true of just all of us, human nature, I think. I mean, we have to have some kind of stimulate. Otherwise, it's like you start to grate on each other. But I think it's really important that we keep, our friends, even, I don't care how old you are, you turn into who you hang around, and it's important to be able to say, because I had the opposite problem where when my daughter was growing up, everybody was a stay-at-home mom and I was the only one that worked. And it was always like, it was always this rolling of the eyes when I walked by and these dirty looks. And I was like, because, I know they were making their cookies from scratch, whereas I was running to the grocery store at 6 a.m. and then putting the cookies in the oven and burning them just a little bit so it looked like I made them. I had my tricks. I did. But, I was like, what? I'm not going to fit in with you guys, and I'm never going to fit in with you. So get over it. It's like, it's not my problem anymore. So I came to a really good place, which is kind of what I tried to teach my daughter as she was growing up. What other people think of you is really none of your business, because people are, there's some people who are going to like you and then not everybody is, it's just the way it is.
That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Which brings us to another good point, which is bullying. I think you talked about that, and it's so important right now that I kind of wanted to bring it up. So,
yeah, I was so fortunate because I just happened to be starting to work on the bullying section, and I saw that Lee Hirsch, who at the time the Bully Project documentary had just come out and it was on fire. I mean, he really started a movement. And he just happened to be, he was going to be speaking at a college about 45 minutes from me. So I contacted his assistant and said, listen, I mean, I didn't even have a book deal at the time. And I said, I'm writing a book. I'd love to sit down with him and everything. And he said yes. And it was amazing because, I mean, literally, like, he was winning awards. He was invited to the White House. I mean, he was the expert.
There are no accidents, Patricia. There aren't.
Well,
divine intervention.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it was a passion project for him. I mean, he is somebody that directs and produces documentaries, and he's not, like he kept saying, I'm not the bully guy, but he had been bullied as a kid, and he had read some recent, some tragic stories in the newspaper, and so when it was time for him to pick a new project, he decided to do this, and he didn't even know if it was going to work, because he said it was him and 3 cameramen. So if you can imagine getting on a school bus but telling everybody, forget we're here,
right,
and following different kids around that were being bullied. But he said we were there so long that literally these kids forgot we were there, and they had to intervene at one point. This kid was being bullied so bad on the bus, and I mean physically. And so it's broken up this whole movement. And I think what it's really allowed too is it's we're able to have some honest discussions now about what bullying really means. And it's online, so much of it is. It also, bullying can be exclusive too. And I think for a long time we thought if your kid's not being like pushed down or constantly like name called, they're not being bullied. But if your child walks into the lunchroom and someone whispers to somebody and they start snickering and everybody gets up every time your child tries to sit down and eat lunch with them, and, you know, there's this hidden, you know, let's exclude them, that is bullying.
Right.
But at the same time, though, if your child gets in an argument with somebody on the playground, that doesn't necessarily mean they're being bullied either. And so I think we had to define what it was first. But the online bullying is a real problem. And we experienced it when my son was 2 months into middle school, and he had his first little girlfriend. And they broke up, and it was fine. They were fine. It wasn't a serious thing.
Yeah.
But her best friend decided that she now hated my son. And so she started posting negative comments on all his pictures on Instagram. And for them at school, that is their yearbook. That is, they're on it constantly. And saying, you're so ugly, I'm going to ruin you. And, I mean, this went on for months. And that's absolutely bullying.
Right.
Now,
right.
He shrugged most of it off. I mean, he just kind of was like, nobody's taking that seriously or whatever. But if he would have been a different personality type, it would have been devastating. You're 1 month into middle school.
Yeah.
So, and these are things that, like, he didn't even tell me about it. I monitor their stuff, and I went on there and I saw it. But this happens. Now, he didn't tell me because he didn't really care.
Well, right. But there are some that aren't telling you, but they do care. And then they don't get help.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. Like, there's other circumstances where I've seen things and I said, whoa, wait, you need to get away from this conversation taking place online. I know you're not involved with it, but there's kids that, you know, follow you or you follow them that are involved in this situation. And I've had to call the school several times and it's not even happening to my kids, but it's out there enough that they can see it and I can see it, and they're not even involved in it. So I think a lot of it is happening online. And I think the kids are so secretive about their accounts, and Snapchat's scary because you can't really monitor it. These posts disappear. And as soon as parents and adults learn how to sort of look at some of these different things, what kids use changes. And the kids maybe don't want you to see something else they posted or a conversation they were involved in, or they don't want to be a tattletale or whatever. But so the adults aren't finding out about it. And I think that sort of needs to be the next big conversation. And my kids get upset because they feel like, you know, every once in a while I hear this like, oh, it's privacy and whatever. And I said, but I own the phone, I pay the bill, and you're a minor. And it's not, and I say it's not that I don't trust you, because if I didn't trust you, you wouldn't have a phone. I mean, period.
Yeah.
It's that my job is to protect you.
Right.
And
well, what do you do?
But
what do you do then? Because, you know, my daughter kind of just missed that. By the time social media was big, she was heading for college. It was, you know, and I just said to her, be careful what you put on there, because, and even back then, because that was like 10 years ago now, I was like, you know, I have a funny feeling, because 10 years ago we didn't know this, that, you know, people on your job or, you know, wherever you end up, they may see what you're putting on there now. So just be really careful about what you're posting and not posting and or commenting on, because I have a funny feeling that they're going to be able to trace all of this someday. So just watch it. And the other thing I said to her right about that time when she was a senior in high school and she was just kind of leaving for college, instead of saying goodbye to her when she was leaving to go to school or whatever, I'd say, I love you, make good choices.
Right.
And that was all I said to her. And then one day she looked at me, she said, you say that every day? And I was like, yeah. I just did that because that's all you can do. I mean, what else can you do? Is there something you can do that we don't know?
I think that is that you constantly have to teach your kid about making good choices, because we can only hold their hand through so much of it. But, you know, one of the things that I see that a lot of the schools are doing, which I think is phenomenal now, is there has been so much focus on the person being bullied and the bully for so long. Now we know what that kind of looks like. Is the campaigns now are really headed towards the witnesses. Well, this is 99% of the people at the school, is they're witnessing it. They're not involved in it.
But
they see it. They know about it. But in the past, most of them did nothing about it because they don't want themselves to become the target. And is getting to that majority and influencing them on how harmful bullying is and what are some things that they can do to sort of deliver a message to somebody that can help a situation, but at the same time not put a target on their back.
Right.
And I mean, I think there's some really excellent messaging out there about it, but it's almost become, at least here in Florida, it's become cool to be anti-bullying. And that's really neat.
Good.
So,
right.
But it's getting to that majority, because if a bully doesn't have an audience, they fizzle out real quick.
Right.
Because they're doing it for attention. They're doing it for a reason, most of them.
Right. And it's usually, I think, that they're so insecure within themselves, they have to have some sort of power. Look at me, look at me, look at me. I can, you know, so I get it. But I like that idea that they have a safe haven way of telling, you know, because I remember when I used to talk to young girls in middle school, when my daughter was in middle school, and I was teaching self-defense, and I had written a book at that time called How to Read Any Man's Mind, how to tell if he's lying to you, all that kind of stuff. But one of the things I went in there for more than anything else was their safety. And they said, well, I said, when and if you're being attacked, do not, well, first of all, try to run, because that's don't try to kick him, because that won't work.
Right.
But that's just going to get you killed. Just run like hell and never get in the car. You're better off being shot out on the street than getting in a car. But one of the things I said was never scream scream help, because people don't want to get involved. If you're just screaming help at the top of your lungs, they kind of don't want to get in it. I said the thing to scream is call 911, because people will do that. They'll go around the corner, but they'll call 911. They don't react when you scream help. So it's the same thing with the bullying. If the witnesses start to say something, no matter how, it can really have an impact. I think.
Right.
I like that idea. Mm-hmm.
Everybody's waiting for somebody to do something.
Right.
And, you know, there's a protocol. If you're an introverted, shy person and you're a witness, you just walk away and you go find an adult and you plant the seed, you know, and let them take over. Then there's the outgoing person who's a witness and was willing to step right up and say, cut it out, you know, or crack a joke or diffuse the situation. I mean, there's all degrees of people. But, you know, I think the more we talk about it and talk to our kids too and help them build, and that's the thing too about finding your passion or something that you're interested in. You build a network or a tribe of people around that. And that's what this Lee Hirsch, when I interviewed him about bullying, and he said the one thing he kept saying, and here he did this documentary and he could have talked about, what a bully is and how you need to talk to your parents, whatever. And what he kept saying was, find a tribe. If you're at school isn't working out for you and you're teased terribly at school or whatever, then go to church and meet some kids there, or join a club, or have your mom drive you to the next town over. And somewhere there are people for everybody. There's a group for you to plug into somewhere, but plug into some people so that while the bully situation's being handled, because he is saying, you need to go to a trusted adult and stuff, but that you're building your self-worth and confidence, because he said it is uncanny. The person that has been really bullied, and I mean, bullied for years or whatever, you can pull them out of a school and you can take them and put them in another school 300 miles away. He said, it's unbelievable. Within 6 months, they'll be the kid bullied again at that school. Bullies are looking for a particular type of person.
Right.
And, and that's why he says you need to start building yourself up from the inside out.
Right. And you can't fake that. It's like it emanates from you, just like people who are ugly on the inside and beautiful on the outside. You still can pick up on it. It's the same thing. You can act as confident as you want, but if you feel like you should be bullied, or it's okay to bully, or you don't feel good about yourself, that kind of comes out as well. You can't. You
and it's not victim blaming, and he was very much,
right, exactly,
clear on that. It's not victim blaming at all.
Exactly.
He was trying to send a message to these kids of hope, like there is hope. And I was talking to these girls the other night, and they've been going through this teen mentorship program, and some of them are homeschooled, and they're homeschooled because they were bullied or had problems at school and everything. And I was telling them, I said, high school seems like our high schools here are just huge. They're like 2,500 kids. I said, it seems like everything. It's your whole world, and it seems like everyone's like that. And that's how I felt when I was in Kansas, too, going to a high school. And I said, there's a huge world out there, all different types of people with all kinds of interests. And, and you just have to get through this little journey here.
Right.
And to get from here to here, if you could just constantly be filling your cup, and filling your self-worth, and you do that by finding things you love and finding people that you connect with and things that give you accomplishment and different things, just get to the other side. I was like, I promise you, there are so many people that are going to love to be around you and that you're going to love to be around,
Exactly.
But
yeah, we're out of time. I was gonna say, if you have a quick question, call in, but no, now you can't, because we're down to the wire. But it's such a fascinating and good conversation, and I know people will have questions for you. They don't think of them right when it's time to call in the second half of the show. But I just want them to know that if they want to reach you, they can reach you at patriciawooster.com, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I have a Facebook page too.
Okay, what's your Facebook page? Or do you have the name?
It's just Patricia Wooster.
Okay, I'm going to spell
official.
it. Okay, I'm going to spell it because people spell Patricia and Woosters and all kinds of other things every kind of strange way. It's PatriciaWooster.com. The name of the book is Ignite Your Spark, Discovering Who You Are from the Inside Out. I love the work you're doing because It's
Thank
such
you.
a really tough age, and I really wished I'd had that. I was on my own pretty much from 15, 16. I think I ran away when I was 16, but
Oh my.
and I never went back. Well, that was kind of like the only way a Muslim girl, and I'm not Muslim now, but a Muslim girl leaves a Muslim father's home is two ways: married or in a coffin. And I was not going to get married at 16. And, you know, he shouldn't. I said, why'd you bring me here then? Because I'm already Californian. You know, I had a job. I was modeling for 17 magazine. I was, you know, what? This guy's going to ask me for dinner. I'm going to throw a can of soup at his head. And he's going to take out a gun and shoot me. And how does that work? So anyway, I crawled out the window and left when I was like 6. But, you know, I think it would have been really nice to have, you know, things like this. I mean, every generation has different, I mean, that was the 70s, so it was very different. But it was like, I just think that anything that can help teens find themselves is important and good. I just do. And I think you're out there, you're talking about it, you're bringing it up. You did this book because it's the first time it's not a job for hire. It's something that came from your heart. This is like your calling, Patricia. So just get out there and keep doing your thing. Please just keep doing your thing. Again, it's patriciawooster.com. The book, Ignite Your Spark, go get it. Or if you have a teenager, or for, you know, a gift for a teenager or anybody else that you know, I think it's excellent. And I appreciate you taking the time on a Sunday night to call in. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you very much. And next book, we'll do it again. Okay?
All right. Sounds good.
Good night. Thank you, Patricia. Take care.
Good night.
Bye. What a great job she's doing. And it is a good book, and I'm not just saying that because, you know, I don't say that when I don't think so. So I do think so in this case. I mean, I don't say it's bad. I just don't say anything at all. But this is really a good book. So if you have teens who are kind of floundering and don't know how to ignite their spark, this will put them on that track. And other than that, you can find me at servettehassan.com. I am, or you can email me. I love to hear from you guys. I've been getting a ton of emails lately. SERVET at servettehassan.com, SERVETHASAN.com. Email me, and you can go on my website, servettehassan.com, about my private consultations, my blogs, my podcasts. I have not been blogging and doing that as much as usual, but there's a reason, and you'll find out at the right time. I just keep working away. I do need moments to regroup, and that's what I've been doing since the first of the year. There's a lot going on. So I will be back out there. I'll be traveling again soon too, probably in a couple of months, like May, like after Memorial Day. There's a big travel period again. So just keep up with me on my website. I have a really great show next week, and then I'm going to take a break for Easter Sunday. I will not do a show on Easter Sunday. But there's a really good show next week as well. Great authors. This was a great conversation today too. So, and I do believe that she's working on what I'm talking about, which is be you to the full, because that's what's really beautiful, and that's what takes you anywhere you want to go in life, whether it be about abundance, success, relationships, whatever. It's about you finding your true self and following that and having fun and enjoying your life, and then things come to you naturally. So be you to the full. That's what's really beautiful, and I'll see you next week. Thank you very much, and you take care. Good night.